Vancouver FC might be the most intriguing side heading into this Canadian Premier League season, as Vancouver FC enters their second season in the club's short history in the CPL after they finished on a mixed bag of a first season that ended actually very strongly for Vancouver FC last year, where they did manage to finish in 7th place on 29 points in their inaugural season, only 3 points ahead of last place Valor. But this was a season that still had many ups and downs for Vancouver FC, but had many bright lights along the way, where the last 6 matches they managed 4 wins out of their last 6, beating the likes of some playoff opposition, where they managed to beat the likes of 4th and 5th place sides in HFX Wanderers and Pacific FC respectively. But while this Vancouver FC side might have finished second last in the table, they have plenty to build off of last season, and will be looking to play spoiler in their second season with the help of plenty of local BC talent. Vancouver FC underwent some massive changes this offseason, but they didn't undergo a complete rebuild. But this ownership changed the face of this club and this program, and they did a tremendous job by changing it and building it around BC-born players and talent, as they did so through the draft and even free agency by signing some of the best CPL veterans who are BC-born and BC talents, and even through the youth sports draft by drafting some fantastic youth sports players who are BC-born talents and some great BC players, and even dipping into the pool abroad and heading into the European pool and signing some BC players and bringing them back home to Vancouver FC. And this ownership did a brilliant job, and arguably one of the players they brought from abroad might be one of the best signings through this offseason in my opinion, in David Norman Jr., as they brought David Norman Jr. back to the Canadian Premier League, as he was formerly with Cavalry FC in the 2021-2022 season most recently. But David Norman Jr. has been playing his football most recently abroad in Ireland with the likes of St. Patrick's Athletic, and the Canadian also managed to earn 2 European appearances as well in the UEFA Conference League qualifiers, but unfortunately his European journey ended there as they were eliminated. But David Norman Jr. wasn't the only major signing this offseason from Vancouver FC, as they also dipped into that free agent pool like I talked about and signed the likes of Cavalry FC winger and BC-born winger in Ben Fisk, who also managed to win the regular season title last year with Cavalry FC. But Vancouver FC did not stop there, as they also went on to strengthen the back line by bringing in a top experienced CPL right back in Paris G, who also just happens to be born in British Columbia, just like Ben Fisk and just like David Norman Jr., 3 fantastic signings from this ownership group. And Paris G was arguably one of the best fullbacks in the CPL last year, and they did a tremendous job by bringing him back home and signing him with Vancouver FC in a huge piece to a very young, talented Vancouver FC side. But Vancouver also made a very exciting signing this past week, just a few days ago earlier on this week, by bringing in Vancouver Whitecaps FC center back in Matteo Campagna, a young Canadian center back with a lot of potential, I truly believe, but has never been given that true chance to break out and be really that guy and be trusted with a huge role. And this year, on a side like Vancouver FC that is very young, that is very exciting with a lot of potential, Matteo Campagna might finally get that chance. But there was also probably the most exciting signing by Vancouver FC in one of the youngest players probably to be signed into this league, in the likes of Vancouver FC, bringing in the 16-year-old Canadian and Irish dual national in Grady McDonald. McDonald will be a player that all Canadians will need to keep a close eye on this season, no matter who you support in this league, and especially if you're a Canada fan, you'll want to keep your eye on Grady McDonald. Vancouver FC have a very exciting, young, talented squad, and especially with some brilliant young Canadian players. The likes of Tariq Tahid, who broke onto the scene last season, Grady McDonald, the new signing, and James Cameron, just to name a few young, talented Canadians, but they have so many brilliant players, and this is a very exciting squad, and especially in net, where this Vancouver FC side might have the best goalkeeping duo in the CPL. And that is all headlined by the starter and the number one man himself in Callum Irving. Callum Irving, of course, the hometown boy, the CPL man himself, who is arguably the best goalkeeper in the CPL last season by some, and he was terrific, and of course, the captain as well of this Vancouver FC side. But he will also, of course, be backed up now by Nico Gianstopoulos, a terrific signing in the past few weeks by Vancouver FC to bring in Nico Gianstopoulos to back up Callum Irving. Nico Gianstopoulos will bring a lot of CPL experience and, of course, is a great addition to this very young, hungry, and exciting Vancouver FC side, who are just heading into their second season in the league. But that doesn't just end there, as this side in Vancouver FC has a brilliant backline and arguably might have the best backline in the CPL, in my opinion. And that will all depend on the center back pairing and how quickly this back line will gel, as it's a completely new back line for the likes of Vancouver FC, as it is headlined by David Norman Jr., their newest signing and arguably the best signing in this offseason, in my opinion. And this is a brilliant signing. David Norman Jr. being 25 years old now, a Canadian who has a lot of potential, I still believe, in the world of football, and will look to bring a lot of experience to this Vancouver FC back line. But it will all depend on how quickly this back line gels, and especially who will be his partner in the back line. My opinion is it will be Rocco Romeu, the Canadian, and it also could be as well with some rotation in Matteo Campagna. Three fantastic Canadian options who could all line up alongside at any opportunity this season. And it's a great chance to see some Canadian talent in this backline. Matteo Campagna, David Norman Jr., and Rocco Romeu. Three brilliant options to have for this Vancouver FC side. But when you move to fullback, this side is up there with the best and arguably has the best fullback options as well in this league, and they couldn't get any better. As at left back, you have two young Canadians in James Cameron and Tyler Crawford, who are very exciting options for this Vancouver FC side, and have Paris G, who can also play out at left back as well, who is a very versatile footballer for this Vancouver FC side. But while at right back, you have the likes of Caden Chung and Paris G as well, who plays mainly at right back, two top CPL professionals, but both very great footballers, and they have some fantastic options in the backline for Vancouver FC. But matches are clearly won and lost in the heart of the midfield, and this for me is Vancouver FC's biggest weakness. I'm not saying they have a huge hole there, I'm not saying that's where they're going to lose games, and I'm not saying that's their biggest threat, but this is, for me, their weakest position in the squad, and that is at the heart of midfield. And they still have some tremendous midfielders on the squad, do not get me wrong by any means. And I'm very excited to see what Grady McDonald is going to bring to this side. Yes, it's a lot of weight for a 16-year-old, but I think he has the talent to come into this midfield. As the manager did say on the Northern Football Podcast, if you drop him into a match at the Santiago Bernabeu for the likes of Real Madrid, it'll be like he's just playing any other game. So Grady McDonald is definitely a player who's going to come in that midfield. It will be very exciting. But there's also a player coming in at the number 10 role in Gabriel Betar for Vancouver FC that I'm very excited to watch, because I think he'll be a great player in that number 10, lining up behind two great number 9s, because you also have the likes of some great wingers at Vancouver FC as well, with Tariq Tahid will of course be that player that gets everyone off their seats, that all supporters will be looking to watch, but he is still very young at 16 years old, so we got a little bit dampen the hype on him, because we don't want to put too much pressure on such a young talented player too soon. But you also have another winger who I think will go very under the radar this season, but will have a fantastic year in Ben Fisk, who is making a homecoming back to BC, who's a great winger with a lot of CPL experience and a player who, of course, won the regular season last year with Cavalry FC. And coming back home, I think, was going to bring a lot out of the likes of Ben Fisk. But up front, you have two fantastic number 9s who have been brought in for Vancouver FC, and the likes of Moses Dyer, and of course, the player who is the key to this team for Vancouver FC is the number 9 up top in Alejandro Diaz, the reigning 2021-2022 CPL Golden Boot winner, along with, most importantly, an ex-CPL champion in 2020-2021 season with Pacific FC. A young player I'm very excited to watch heading into his second professional season with Vancouver FC in the Canadian Premier League is Tariq Tahid. Yes, it's the obvious shout, but Tariq Tahid is a player that all Canadian supporters and CPL supporters have to be keeping their eyes on this season. He's an incredible footballer with a moment of brilliance that gets everyone off their seats, and he has that extra bit of flair that will get all CPL supporters absolutely buzzing this season. But Tahid might only be heading into this season as a 16-year-old for his second professional year as a footballer. But last year, at the age of 15, saw Tariq Tahid manage 20 appearances while also starting 6 of those and adding 3 goals along the way, while also, let's remember, being 15 years old. That is absolutely incredible, and the same age that Vancouver FC happened to sign Grady McDonald. Maybe we could see another incredible year from another young star in Grady McDonald, but this year, for myself, I got Vancouver FC's Young Player of the Season being Tariq Tahid. A new player to Vancouver FC who I expect to have a fantastic season and a breakout year this year in the Canadian Premier League will be David Norman Jr. And yes, he's been talked about loads in this video, but I expect David Norman Jr. to have a tremendous season when returning back home to British Columbia. And this is a side in Vancouver FC who I have very high expectations for and think can do brilliant things this season. But this season, I think they'll have moments this year playing against sides like Forge FC and Cavalry where they will be under the cosh at times and relying on their back line. And David Norman Jr. will be a key part of that back line and a very crucial player, whether it's sitting back in a low block against those major sides or controlling play and being that calm, composed player with that experience in the back line against some other teams when they're looking to break down a lower block. David Norman Jr. is going to be a crucial player, whether it's scoring goals or defending against some of the major sides. He will be a monumental player and a crucial player to this Vancouver FC side this season. And being 25 years old, yes, it's quite a bit younger than Magicar James. I do think David Norman Jr. has a lot of potential, and being so young, could potentially have an incredible year and look to move on and use this as a springboard for his football and have a Magicar James type of season with a fantastic year and a huge transfer off the back of that. So saying that, I believe David Norman Jr. will be my Vancouver FC Player of the Season. Vancouver FC are a perfect side setting into their second season in the CPL, set up to play spoiler in their second season. And I believe they can upset a lot of the bigger hitters in the CPL like Forge and Cavalry FC in their second year. And this is a team that I think, if everything clicks, could have an extremely exciting playoff run. But a team that supporters shouldn't expect to challenge for their title, but a side that I think should be expected to make a playoff push and definitely finish within the playoff mix and the playoff positions. That is why I have Vancouver FC finishing in 4th place within the regular season, as I think all of the improvements they've made on the side, and they have such a young, hungry team with now a great mix of Canadian CPL experience. This is a perfect blend of a squad and a great change by bringing a lot of BC players, which I think is going to have such a huge, healthy impact within this side that we're going to see going deeper within the season, playing for that badge and playing for the supporters around the area, and really showing why BC is a huge footballing province within Canada. And having that young and hungry side with the potential to upset a lot of big sides this season in the league, I think this Vancouver FC side will have a terrific season and surprise many CPL supporters.